So, Alexandria Crutcher is the executive director of the Lullaby House, a maternity home located in Bishop Arts. They provide housing and support programs to pregnant and parenting teenagers within a safe, faith-based, nurturing home environment. And as I mentioned earlier, the Lullaby House is one of Counsel for Life's 2023 beneficiaries. Before starting the Lullaby House, Alexandria had more than 20 years of teaching experience in Dallas at the high school and college levels. Seeing girls in high school graduate with 2 children before the age of 18 and little, if any, support was heartbreaking to her. She felt led to respond to God's call to help them. Alexandria will talk to us this evening about teen pregnancy issues.
Now I have the privilege of introducing you, Dr. Harris. This is Stephen Harris, and he is a member of the Counsel for Life Advisory Board and has been for many years, and we are appreciative of all his service on the board. He is the medical director and volunteers at Thrive Pregnancy Resource Center, Thrive Women's Clinic, which is also a beneficiary of Counsel for Life for 2023. He is an OBGYN. He is a partner at Obstetrics and Gynecology Associates Dallas. He graduated from UT Southwestern with his medical degree and has been in practice for more than 20 years. He has a tender heart for the preborn, but he's also a committed scholar. And you study the research and the data carefully to provide the best women's health care possible. Each January, he and his wife, Alicia, lead a medical mission team to Guatemala to provide medical care to the underserved in a Christian environment. Thank you, Dr. Harris, for joining us this evening.
And now it's my privilege to introduce our third special guest this evening, Lisa Freeman. In 2001, Lisa pursued a master's degree in counseling, which led her to volunteer at Prestonwood Pregnancy Center. She ultimately left her corporate job to become the development director and later the executive director at Prestonwood. After 12 fulfilling years, God led her to serve in other realms of nonprofit work, including a Cuban church outreach ministry. God then led her to her present role as executive director of Thrive Women's Center in 2022, another Counsel for Life 2023 beneficiary. So shall we get started, Leanne and panel, distinguished panel? As a reminder, we're here tonight to talk about changing the tragic story of unwanted pregnancies and abortion. So we're going to begin with you, Alexandria, please. Could you please share with our guests how you became pro-life?
Most certainly. First and foremost, the Lullaby House is named after my aunt. I had an Aunt Lullaby. And so my Aunt Lullaby was the first person that introduced us to Christ. She never met a stranger, anyone from the church or the neighborhood who needed a place to stay or food or clothes. She provided that. We would be afraid. I mean, it didn't matter if she knew the person or someone just brought him, and she would always say, God is in control. But she also taught us about how precious life is. And just seeing her and her compassion for others, and that, again, it didn't matter who you were. You could be a homeless man on the street, but she saw the good in everybody. But she also taught us that God doesn't make mistakes. No matter what happens, no matter what situation. We were talking earlier about, God not nothing happens by coincidence. It's all orchestrated by God. He is the author and the finisher of all things. And so with that, a young woman or a woman, female, anyone who becomes pregnant, it's not by accident. It serves some purpose. We don't always know what God's purpose is, but my lullaby taught us that, every child, every baby, every pregnancy has meaning. And it is a human being from conception, not just after 6 weeks or 9 weeks or anything like that. So it was instilled in me from a young age, and I just truly believe that every child has a right to be born.
So that's beautiful that she was your inspiration. So tell us a little bit more about the Lullaby House and the teen moms that you serve, please.
I founded the Lullaby House in 2016. As Suzanne mentioned, I was an educator. I taught at the high school level and at the community college level. But I was sharing with Dr. Harris. I went to school to be an OBGYN. I did my internship at Parkland for 2 summers, watching delivery of babies and all of that. But my mom became really ill while I was in school. And again, you know, our plan sometimes is not always God's plan. So my plan was altered, and I started teaching. But as she also mentioned, I saw a lot of young moms dropping out of high school, ending up in domestic violence relationships, having 2 children by the time they graduated. My sister has 13 adopted children, 11 of them by teenage mothers. My own personal experience, I was teaching and coaching I coached basketball at Roosevelt High School, and one of my basketball players became pregnant her senior year. And she came to me crying, saying, "Coach, what am I going to do?" She was an identical twin. They were being raised by an 80-year-old grandmother, and there was 12 people in a 2-bedroom home. So I told her if she wanted to go to schools before I got married and had my own children, that I would take care of the baby for her while she finished school. I brought Amaya into my home at 4 months. Amaya will be graduating this year. So the Lullaby House was birthed out of not only the love and compassion my Aunt Lullaby had for family, but just what we instilled in us about just everyone deserves a helping hand, and without supportive services, it's very difficult. In the middle of writing my dissertation, I altered that when I started the Lullaby House and did a lot of research on teenage pregnancy. And what I found is that there's a lack of services, but also ignorance is not knowing. If teenagers don't know how to access the resources and the help that is out there, it's really difficult for them. I started the Lullaby House for the housing program. Unfortunately, I knew nothing about the nonprofit sector. I didn't know how difficult it would be to open a house. And so while I was advocating and trying to bring awareness to the issue of teen pregnancy, we started our community care programs. During the pandemic, we served over 10,000 families with all things baby in 2021. Not only do we provide them with anything they need for their child, because I'm an educator and a lifelong learner, we also teach classes in English and in Spanish. We teach child development classes, health and wellness, anger management. Someone asked me earlier, how could they volunteer? Whatever you want to teach, if you want to teach something, whatever your specialty is, it could be sewing, no matter what that is. But what I learned is that if you offer them, they'll come, but we educate them in the process. We also provide referral services to pregnancy centers, to job placement agencies, anything that a family needs. Our mission is to strengthen families through our programs and services by providing those things to families in need and teenage parents, but also to help promote generational change. We also have a housing program for teen moms that are in foster care. We're only one of 3 homes currently open in the state of Texas to provide housing for mom and baby together. It's almost like kinship. If they're in foster care, one can go one place and one can go another. But we provide a home for them where mom and baby can come together to be able to live. We're also the only maternity home that takes children under 18. You have other maternity homes that take teenagers, but they start at 18. We can house teenagers as young as 12. And as sad as that may seem, they do have babies at 12. A year and a half ago, we had a 12-year-old twins. We also have a teen parenting program in the community. We partner with Duncanville ISD, DISD, and next year we'll be in Lancaster ISD, working with those teen parents. We serve the mothers, but we also serve the dads as well. We've been fortunate this year. We had actually 5 dads who went through a lot of our programs. That was huge because it's really hard for men to ask for help, especially young boys. So we do a lot of educational assistance, maternal assistance, and also health and wellness education, because health care is something that they don't have very often have access to, and so prenatal care is really lacking with teenagers.
Thank you.
Yes, well, That was lovely, Alexandria. Let's hear a little bit about your story, Dr. Harris. Why are you pro-life?
I was lucky to and blessed to meet Christ when I was 13, and I was raised in a Christian home, and we spent a lot of time reading the Bible, and I knew from the Bible, from a faith reason, that God knew us from when we were in the womb, and that's, for some reason, that always stuck with me. When I got to college, I knew I was wanting to go into medicine. I took a medical ethics class and really got to think about the abortion issue at that time. And there's a lot of apologetics on the abortion, pro-abortion side that just did not ring true to me. Excuses for who's a person, who's not a person, when do you become a person? And it was clear that if you were scientifically, and this is where I went from faith to science, and on both sides you can get an answer. And scientifically, if you're intellectually honest, the minute that sperm and egg meet, that is the creation of life. It doesn't always turn out that way. Some people miscarry, but by definition, it's not implantation. It's when the sperm and the egg meet. And anything else, if you say anything else, to be honest, you have to say you are destroying a life. And that was just something with knowing what God's background, of knowing us since we were in the womb, that it just did not fit. So I went off to medical school after college thinking I was going to be a kidney specialist. And God had other ideas. I went into a specialty I had no interest in initially, but then it just opened up my eyes to the whole world. The birth of a baby, following through that whole process, and how we're uniquely human, how each of us is so important to God. Every single life matters. That's where I got drawn to becoming an OBGYN and seeing that the OBGYN world was very odd because you had people who were so committed to saving a life at 22, 23, 24, 25 weeks, and then the same people, fortunately not many that I worked with, but same people on the other side of their mouth terminating pregnancies, sometimes for cause they felt was great because of injured babies, sometimes for a bad life situation, and sometimes just inconvenience. And that just did not jive with, you can't live that dichotomy. And so finding a way to nurture people. I've been doing this a long time, and it's really hard to change someone's heart yourself. I think God changes those hearts, and arguing is not the way to get there. It's the love of Christ, and showing that love for people going through this. And through Thrive is where I really had a chance to work in a way that you could non-judgmentally try to love these people, try to help them through it, try to let them know that the baby's going to be okay. No matter, there's no normal. Some babies are not going to be perfect in every way, but no one is. And so that's how I got my start in this, and it's just been a big part of my life.
Thank you, Dr. Harris, and for telling us about life beginning at conception, when that egg and sperm meet. Also, I keep adding on to that, that's when parenting begins as well. You become a mother and a father when that happens. Great. Well, Suzanne, did you have another question for Alexandria?
I certainly do. Alexandria, could you please tell us about the current unplanned teen pregnancy situation here in Dallas and in our state?
Texas ranks in the top 10 and has ranked in the top 10 for the last 10 years in teenage pregnancy. Dallas has 3 of the highest zip codes in the nation with the highest teen pregnancy rates, and we have 5 others that are in the top 20. Dallas is number 1 in repeat births among teenagers. What that means, if they have one, they'll have another one within the next year or two. Also, one reason why we are housing those moms that are in foster care, as I mentioned earlier, we're only 1 in 3 homes currently open in the state of Texas to house mom and baby together. Out of the 3 homes that are currently open, we have 21 beds among us as 21 moms. Last year in the state of Texas, we had 674 pregnant and parenting teens in foster care without placement. They're sleeping in offices, they're sleeping in hotels and all of that because they have no placement for them. And what happens is mom goes one place, the baby goes somewhere else. And so by coming to the Lullaby House, they're able to stay together. But the teen pregnancy crisis, even though it's declining, it's not declining right here in our backyard. And it's not enough supportive services to help these teens. Texas Children's Organization did a detailed report and has written a detailed report the last 4 years on the lack of supportive services for teen parents in foster care and how the state needs to do more. So we're actually filling that gap by helping provide housing for them. And we provide long-term housing.
Thank you.
Dr. Harris, we keep saying the words Pregnancy Resource Center. We have you and we have Lisa here. Could y'all tell us what a Pregnancy Resource Center is and then what your role as the medical director is there?
So a pregnancy resource center is a place where women can come to discuss their options related to their pregnancy. That's what we tell them when they call. And so we do talk about, obviously, continuing in their pregnancy. We talk about adoption, and we talk about abortion. And we let them know the risks and things associated with that and, what they might experience if they move forward with an abortion. Certainly we are pro-life, and we use the tools primarily through sonography to help them connect with that life that they're carrying if they do have a positive test. So a girl comes in for an appointment with us, has a pregnancy test. Well, first she meets with a client advocate who is a volunteer. And that person is just kind of getting an understanding of where they are in their life, what they're dealing with, what are the stressors, the things that have brought them to us, really. Most of our clients are definitely not expecting, or we're not expecting or hoping to be pregnant. And so they're looking for, how can they, in many cases, they would say, want to take care of their situation. And so we are there to listen to them as much as we can to just kind of ascertain where they are. This is like I said, the volunteer client advocate. And then she works with the nurse who will come in and also do a health history with her and then perform the pregnancy test, get that test result, and depending on how far along she is, then she's eligible for a sonogram. So when that happens, if she does that on the same visit, then that's clearly where we hope to make the connection with her with the life that she carries. And we're able to do all of this because of the support and help of Dr. Harris and his working with us as our medical director at Thrive. Want to take it from there?
Sure. My role is I supervise the sonography. Once the nurses are trained in it, each day me or one of the other volunteer physicians goes over the sonogram report, make sure everything's accurate. Then we meet with some of the complicated patients, mostly with medical complications. A lot of people are scared that they may have something that's going to preclude a safe pregnancy, or they're worried about something related to their baby. And it gives us a chance to go over their medical conditions, look at how the baby's formed, and be able to help them get involved in good medical care. We help them get Medicaid. We've got a whole list of doctors who are willing to work with us and with the babies. So my role is, it's changing now that the whole world has changed in a good way, but the changes, we used to be able to use the sonogram as a great way for you to see that this is a live human being with a heartbeat. We would be able to bring them back and follow the changes, and that changed so many hearts when you can really see your own child inside. Now we're facing a new world. It's the chemical abortion. The goal is basically to do it as soon as possible, and so they're coming in. These poor patients are coming in wanting to know if they are really pregnant, and to move as quickly as they can to order something online, which kind of as a physician, it blows me away that you can you can show a picture of a pregnancy test to somebody online, and they will send you the medication. They don't know if the pregnancy's in the right place because there are tubal pregnancies. You don't know if potentially the pregnancy is destined for miscarriage anyway. I mean, it's 20% of people with a positive pregnancy test miscarry, and if you could have the chance to talk to that person and have them come back for another sonogram and see, some of them you're going to let them avoid making a huge heart-rending mistake when they don't really have to. It also gives us a chance to establish a connection and a place where they can come and feel the love of Christ and that there is hope. So it's a changing environment. I'll talk a little bit more about the abortion pills involved, and then also something that I'm really interested in, which is abortion pill reversal or recovery. But I'll get to that in a minute. You want to do that now? Okay. So it's something I've learned a whole lot about.
Maybe tell us what the abortion pills are, how they work, and then the reversal.
Definitely. So it's really two pills that are taken to effect an abortion. The first one is mifepristone, which is a progesterone inhibitor, and it basically takes the thing supporting the pregnancy and takes it away. And then a little bit later, you take another medicine that causes contractions and causes the miscarriage to happen. So it's really two pills. It's not one, or two medicines, not one. It can be in multiple pill forms. That has been something we didn't face that much 2 years ago. It was building, but in Texas especially, it wasn't used that much, and we didn't hear that much about people who had done that. Now that the laws have changed, it has really changed from going someplace, because there's no place open in Texas that will do an abortion, but they can get these pills so easily from Canada, from other states, from even in Europe or in South America, Central America. So for us, it's a change of paradigm shift where we are trying to see people early, but also keep them coming back so we can build a relationship, let God do his heart changing. And for some women who come to us, there is this abortion pill reversal. It's something I came kind of slow to think it was really scientifically proven to work safely, and the data is a little limited. But there are a number of studies that are they're not randomized clinical trials, but they're very good descriptive studies of how this can work, and it can work in about 2/3 of the time if someone has taken the first pill, the mifepristone, and decided, no, I've made a mistake, I'd like to reverse it. You can take the progesterone and just flood the system with progesterone, and it can compete with the progesterone inhibitor and let the pregnancy continue on. And it's about 2/3, 66, 68% are successful. Again, the American College of OBGYN, which is supposedly the voice of obstetricians, gynecologists, has taken a very strong stance against that. And it's become very controversial. In Colorado, for instance, last week, several weeks ago, the state passed a law to say that if you give progesterone to somebody who has had the abortion pill, the first one, the mifepristone, that's unethical and illegal. There was it's gone to court, and they've put a hold on that right now. They're not enforcing it, but they are looking at it, and they're going to supposedly have a decision in September or so as to whether physicians around the state will agree that that's unethical because of lack of data. We would love to have more data about its safety, but it's hard to get that data. And these women are desperate, and I do not think there's anything from all the things I've seen that show any evidence that it puts them at more risk by giving them something to try to help. And again, the anecdotal data of hundreds, like 800 patients, showed a 66% success rate in reversing as long as they haven't taken the second medication. So it's a whole new world out there. It's not an easy thing. I mean, it is so bloody and so messy and just harsh, painful, just like a miscarriage is. And the miscarriages, any of y'all who've experienced them, are just horrible. There's nothing easy about them. There's nothing there's nothing clean. There's nothing tidy. It is harsh. And you know, for me, I think this legal challenge is going to be there back and forth. Somebody was asking me, what's it going to look like 5 years from now? And I think we're still going to be so divided on that. And I think God's going to change this one person at a time, one situation at a time. And you know, that's where my prayer is that I know God can handle this. God controls this. God's got it. But we can do our part in just trying to help people understand what they'd be going through, trying to get them to where they don't take those pills. It's in some ways that's been made too easy, and I think finding ways to publish how potentially dangerous it is and the chances that they'll end up in an ER with massive bleeding. And like I say, it's just not pretty.
Well, for teenage mothers, it's even more devastating. With just the regular abortions having to go into the clinic, a lot of them don't have access to transportation and things like that to be able to get to the clinics for those abortions. But with chemical abortions and being able to order them online, get fake IDs, all the other things that they're going to be doing to try to get this pill. And Dr. Harris said something so profound. He said, what happens when they change their mind? One thing with the teenagers, they're fickle. And they go from one thing to the next. But even what this young lady stated, she said she was hoping her boyfriend would tell her not to. Like, what happens once they take that first pill and they decide this is not what I want to do? Most of these teens are being raised in poverty-stricken families, at-risk neighborhoods. It's going to be a lot of them, if they take this pill, that are going to be left bleeding in a bed alone without any help and things like that. So it's going to be very devastating for that population. Ignorance is not knowing. All they know is that it'll terminate the pregnancy. They don't know all of the side effects, all of the medical issues that can happen as a result. And it's going to be a very devastating situation for the population of teens that we serve.
Thank you.
It's about the need for a trusted adult in their lives. You had mentioned that the other day when we talked with you, Alexandria.
There are several outcomes and goals that we have at the Lullaby House for the teen parents that we work with. That's to delay subsequent pregnancies, help them stay in school. And one of the most important things is helping them build trusting relationships with adults. Oftentimes they don't have that, especially with the moms that are in our home, because you have to remember they're in foster care. That means they've been removed from their homes because of abuse, neglect, or some trauma. So when they come to us, the state was here today and we were talking about this. The state labels the children as basic, moderate, specialized, and intense. I don't know a child that can come into foster care that would be labeled basic. I recently went through a divorce and I don't feel like my children are basic. So I just feel like that, and we have found that by them having a trusting adult, you're able to get more out of them. Feel free to be able to share their experiences and what they're going through. And because we provide wraparound services, we're able to educate them, help them to find the resources that they need, get them to pregnancy centers, get them, the health and wellness and nutrition that they need, help them learn. We've equipped and empowered them to not only live lives of hope, but to also to move towards self-sufficiency. And this break that cycle of poverty, because in poverty-stricken families and at-risk communities, having a baby brings more wealth, as they see it, into the home. What that means is more food stamps, it's more TANF, it's more government assistance. So it's not always looked at as a negative. So we help educate them on how much it costs to raise a baby for 1 year. We also teach the PAPA curriculum. It's a curriculum by the office that teaches you about child support, what rights the parents have, what rights the dad has. Because oftentimes teen moms use the dad as a weapon against the fathers, and they don't know that they actually have rights. So we teach them about that. It teaches them about healthy relationships and what it looks like. We have a young mom now in the home with us, and the dad is still in the child's life, but we have to have her on speaker when she talks to the father because he's belligerent and verbally abusive. And so as soon as he starts that, we terminate the phone call. But she doesn't understand why that's a negative. She wants to go and live with his mom because the mom is really supportive of her, but she doesn't understand by living with the mom, you're exposed to him every single day. But helping them understand what a healthy relationship looks like, all of that. So we advocate for them, but we also help them to see, again, you guys have to remember, it's children raising children. The state and society views teen moms as adults. They're not adults. It's a child that is giving birth to another child, but they're still going through understanding what's going on with their bodies and how their bodies work. So we like to say that we are going to walk with these children from childhood through adulthood. And that's why our license from the state, we can take them from 12 to age 23.
Wow, Dr. Harris, Lisa, Alexandria, this has been just such an enlightening conversation for all of our audience. I'm sure they agree. And I would imagine that some of you have some questions that you might like to pose. So perhaps we can open up the floor to Q&A. Anyone? Kelly?
I just want to ask about the time limit on the abortion, chemical abortion, and what is the window of technical cutoff for that, and are people going past that, and then what happens?
It's 72 hours from the first bill until the next.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the week
Is
of
it late
pregnancy.
in terms of pregnancy? The pregnancy.
How far along is the
No. 10 weeks is what the current recommendation is to try to do those. So I mean, at 10 weeks, you're going to see that's where you're going to see the real heaviest bleeding and the worst problems. Is that what you were asking?
It is what I was asking. And also, do you see that people are adhering to that 10-week cutoff? And if they don't, what is the outcome if they go past 10 weeks? And is there any law in place that makes them have to adhere to the 10-week cutoff?
I mean, there's laws that are, I mean, it's a recommendation. I don't know that there's a law that says that. That's kind of what it's kind of like the medical standard. And people are, I'm sure, going past it. Now, I can't speak to that because I don't see that part of it. But I anecdotally hear stories of that. And the further along you go, the more likely it is to be an incomplete miscarriage, which can be, again, life-threatening to the mom also.
We did have a client who obtained pills from another country. And so, of course, there's a delay in receiving those. So given where she would be about that time would be around 10 weeks. And so she expressed, I really hope I get them in time, but they're sending some extra pills if I need them. So it's literally almost like if a little will do a little good, a lot will do a lot of good. And obviously we were not part of that conversation to know exactly what was shared with her, but to know how far along she was and how much was sent to her in case she needed more and was further along.
So they're not having to go in and get a confirmation sonogram of how many weeks they are. They can just say they're
No.
10 weeks, but they could be whatever.
It's terrible. There's no regulation.
There's no regulation, and especially on those that go out of state as well. It's the same. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it used to be required, didn't it, that a woman who was contemplating a chemical abortion had to go in and see a doctor, be examined, and there be a determination about how far along she was, right?
Uh-huh.
Isn't it still?
No.
In 2021.
Well, it's in Texas. It's not because it's not legal at all.
They're not supposed to be doing it at all. Changed their guidelines in 2021 during the pandemic, right?
But in the states where it is legal.
And so they're calling or getting someone out of state then to send them. So
I mean-
they're still using what they're getting from us here.
because mifepristone was approved by the FDA 2 decades ago, and just gradually over the years during the Obama administration and the Biden administration, the restrictions, the safeguards for women's health have been removed. And that's what this lawsuit is all about, that's been making its way through the courts, which I'm sure you all are aware of. But
And Lisa, do most of the pregnancy centers provide the abortion reversal pill now?
Many do, yes.
Just Thrive?
We're actually in the process of it right now, talking with Dr. Harris.
Okay, and do you have to get your board support in order to do that?
Yes.
Is
they're
that-
on board with that.
Is there any resistance there, or is there that, apprehension about doing that?
Not for us, and I've certainly, we've talked with other pregnancy centers as executive directors when we meet and talk. So many are doing it, and the groundwork was laid so well from, Heartbeat International on answering questions and how to do it. So they've certainly made that process easier and answered a lot of the legal questions and, to make sure. But of course, we all the time are making sure that we have liability insurance and everything in place that we need. So at this point, a few years earlier, I think it might have been a bigger question, but so many are on board now.
Good.
Yeah.
Marlon, did you have a question?
Alexandria, how many women are you able to house at a time?
Currently, we can only house 4 moms or 4 babies. Because the house is 4 bedrooms. And we do that.
Okay, and how many refer to you? I'm sorry.
Through the CPS system, through a social worker, the social worker. So we're sent placement requests.
Okay.
And then we have to look at them to make sure they follow the guidelines. Because we don't take those that are intense, which means that they may be schizophrenic or bipolar or things like that. So, but we get about 30 placement requests a day.
And are you mostly these types of your?
Yeah, we only in the home. In our community care program, we serve any teens in the community.
So tell me about your community care program.
Okay, in our community care program, we also have a teen parenting program, and that's where we work with Dallas ISD, Duncanville ISD, we'll be in Lancaster ISD in the fall. But any teens that come to us, then we service them and provide the wraparound services. Most of the things in the teen parenting program are referral services, but they also take our classes through what we call a Lullaby House Academy, where they're educated, and then they can also get the material assistance, the diapers and wipes, and all of those things as needed. We partner with the social workers at the schools for that, but again, we service any teens from any other schools as well. We do a teen parent, a teen mom angel tree for Christmas. We have 75 moms on the teen angel tree this year. We do an event for Mother's Day, and so we do baby showers every 3 months, and the baby showers are open to the community as well. We do diaper drives in the community where we partner with churches, food banks, child care group, any other organizations that are giving out resources, and we come alongside them and give out baby items. And then for them to come back, well, we learn if you offer them something, they'll come. So when they come, we tell them you have to take a class to come back, and so we're educating them in the process. And again, the classes are everything from educational classes, parenting classes, child development, counseling, whatever they may need. We also
management?
Yes.
financial, literacy, job training, all of that. And then we also teach ESL classes. About 50% of our population in our community care program are Hispanic, and about 25% of them are non-English speakers. And so again, one way that we help them to be able to parent and strengthen that family is to teach them how to communicate. They have to be able to communicate with their doctors and their teachers and things like that, because often it's a younger child that's interpreting for the parent, without clear understanding. So we make sure that they do that. Last year we served 7,800 families in the community. In 2021 it was 10,000. So
And so do they come to you? Like if you're working with DISD, are the girls coming to you?
We do both. We do
Essentially the
both.
outpatient stuff?
Yeah,
You
and then we-
also go to the schools?
And then we also do home visits.
Okay.
What we've learned is if you go into the home, when I was a teacher, I was part of DISD CEHI program. That's where you go in and tutor the moms after they have the baby. But what we learned is if you do home visits, you get a better understanding of what the teen is dealing with. Mental health crisis is really high among teenage pregnancy. That's why suicide ideation is so high, because again, society expects them to be expects them to be adults. and with all that responsibility, and they're still teenagers, so mental health is really, issues are really high among that population. So going into the house, you can see the whole family dynamic, and you kind of know what they're dealing with, and you're able to assist them better by knowing what they're dealing with, because oftentimes you have to build that trust and rapport for them to open up.
Yeah.
Did you say how long they could stay in the maternity home?
Yes, in the maternity home, they can stay with us until age 23. And so currently, we only can house 4 moms and 4 babies. This current house, we start at age 14 to 17. For our license, we can take them as young as 12 and as old as 23. But we want to have what we like to call age and emotionally appropriate housing. What that means is we don't want to put a 12-year-old in the house with an 18-year-old. So we want to make sure that we can address their diverse needs. But with this first home, like right now, we have 2 15-year-olds. When she turns 17, we don't want to say, okay, you have to go back to the system. So we're working right now to try to raise funds and partner with other community organizations and investors to help us to open more lullaby houses so we can actually transition them into, again, from childhood to adulthood. Because you don't want to spend most teenagers in foster care move on an average of 9 to 10 times by the time they graduate. So if they come to us, it takes a year for them to build that trust and realize that they're safe. The 3 moms that we've had in the home, we just opened in August, the 3 moms we've had in the home, one didn't unpack for 2 months, one didn't unpack for 3, and the other one unpacked the first day and repacked the next day. So because they don't want to get comfortable, they think it's not, something that they're going to be able to enjoy or, to be there for a long time. And so having age and emotional appropriate housing is important. So we're currently just trying to raise funds to be able to open more lullaby houses.
Yes. In the back.
I have a question for the doctor. From the time they decide they've made a mistake after taking that first pill, and how much time do you have to flood the womb with progesterone before the baby's going to have some sort of brain damage or something from not being connected?
That's a good question. What tends to happen is you've got about 72 hours from the time you give that, they take the mifepristone, and you've got that amount of time. It's better the sooner you do it. We're not really seeing, you made a really good point. The brain damage, if it was going to happen, wouldn't be from the progesterone, it'd be from it not working, and like you say, them being without what they need to live. But what we're seeing is not that. We're seeing it tends to be all or nothing. It tends to be they either make it and do fine or they miscarry. They're not seeing higher birth defect or bad outcomes. It's a great question.
Is anybody collecting data on women that do have complications from using that pill, like hemorrhaging out, going into shock, those kind of things? I couldn't imagine having an 8-week or 10-week miscarriage without having a C&C to clean out the uterus.
There's not great data on either side. People on both sides have tried to do this. There was a very interesting study that was started, was going to be 40 women, and they ended up with 12 women, 6 who got placebos. What they took was people who said they were going to terminate no matter what. They agreed to either take a placebo or progesterone and then see what happened. And of 6 people who took placebo, 2 of them had massive hemorrhage and went to, from not taking the second one and go ahead and finish it. One person in the treatment group had heavy bleeding, but by the time they got her, the bleeding had stopped and the pregnancy was still viable at that time. Now, again, these were people who were going to terminate anyway, so they went ahead and all of them terminated. So it's really hard to get accurate data with something like this, and it's almost unethical to do these studies. So it's really hard. I'm hoping we get more data that's just true facts.
I have a quick question. What's the percentage of mothers that give up the baby for adoption?
I don't know the exact number,
Close.
but it's not very high.
Okay.
And the reason why, again, because we're talking about children in at-risk and poverty-stricken communities and families. And again, the babies are not seen so much as going to the struggle. They don't look at the struggle as opposed to it's helping the family. And I know that's crazy thinking, but that's what they're thinking
So
about.
it's a capital event.
Yes, it's more food stamps, it's financial assistance, it's all of those things without thinking about all of the other dynamics that come along with, giving birth.
And the follow-up question is, how many of these women end up homeless?
Now, I do know last year it was about 43% the last time that we took the data, but it was from 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
And then the grandmother raises the child.
And so what happens is usually 75% of the time, a teen mom is a product of a teen mom, who's a product of a teen mom. And as a former educator, I've witnessed, you have a 14-year-old student, her mom comes to the school, she's 28 or 29, and then the grandmother comes and she's 43. So it's just a vicious cycle, and it's that's all they know. And again, it's one reason why we want to be able to show them something different, because that's all they know, and that's all they've been taught.
Tell them about the location of Lullaby House.
So the Lullaby House is in the Bishop Arts District. I don't know if you guys know how Section 8 is doing their families now. They're putting them in Plano, Richardson, Frisco, different areas like that. The whole premise behind that was to show them something different. If you live in a poverty-stricken community, you go to school there, you go to church there, all your family's there. If the bus can't get you there, you can't go. Perfect example, I was coaching and teaching at Roosevelt. My first year, I put a tournament on the schedule in Oklahoma. We got to Plano and I said, Coach, are we there yet? Because they don't know anything different. So one reason why we wanted to put it in Bishop Arts, Dwell with Dignity, a nonprofit organization here in Dallas, completely decorated and furnished a home for us. It is a beautiful home in the Bishop Arts District. And when you walk in, it's loving and inviting. It gives them something to be proud of. The state representative was there today doing our audit, and I asked her how many homes are in Texas like the Lullaby House, and she says there are none. She said that most of the time the teenagers are put in institution-like facilities where they're given a bed, a blanket, and meals, for lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner like you do at school, like those school meals. At the Lullaby House, it's run just like a home. They have chores. They go to school, they have a bedtime, they can participate in community activities, school activities. The only difference is, I'm sure was one earlier, they just have a lot of adults that's helping. We don't have any, we have 24-hour wait staff, so we have 2 staff on each shift, except for the night shift when they're asleep. But they have that trusting relationship, and so the state representative today interviewed the girls, and so they had one who cooks the best, one who rocks the baby to sleep the best, and one who entertains them the best. So they have, so they are given multiple people to form those bonds with, and it's very important. We do a lot of staff training on trauma-informed care. That's adequately knowing how to care for a child that's been traumatized. And you know that their behavior is not because of something they wanted to do, but something they've seen. We do positive child development, which is positive reinforcement with the children. We also advocate for these children. We have a teen now that's in our care, she's 15. The baby's father is 35. She calls the baby's father her best friend. Of course, right now he's up on charges. Well, she got a phone. They can't have a phone at the Lullaby Houses because of all the other dynamics that can bring about. But she had a phone. Her social worker called and said she was going to call the judge and tell the judge to have the baby removed because of neglect and because of her putting the baby in harm's way. We had to advocate for that mom. And we said she made a teenage mistake. If I take my daughter's phone, the next day she's going to try to use her brother's phone. That's what teenagers do. But because the state treats them like adults and on adult guidelines, it was putting the baby in harm's way. It was, because we didn't know if she was telling them where they were living or anything like that. But that's part of teaching her. She's a child. And so we do a lot of advocating for her. We had another young mom who had a baby, I was telling Dr. Harris, with a condition called sinus invertus. The baby's organs were flipped. She was the first baby ever born to the Lullaby House, and all the organs were on the one side. The mom was devastated. But what was more devastating is the condition is hereditary. Both parents have to have the gene. It's a very rare condition. When the baby was born, she completely wanted nothing to do with the baby. Nothing at all. You'd see him sometimes, she'd say, I think he kind of looks like me. And then the next day, I told you guys I'm not touching the baby today. After 2 months, she decided she didn't want to have the baby. We talked to the social workers at the hospital and thought maybe she had postpartum. And then we started thinking maybe it was molestation because the dad had molested her before. But the state just came in and removed the baby. She got no mental health counseling. There was no questioning or trying to find out what was really going on with the teen. The baby went one place and the mom went back to residential treatment center without any kind of counseling. It's not a good outcome for that mom. Nobody was stepping in. So we do a lot of advocating for the moms, not only in the house, but also in our teen parenting program. I like to share that we're amplifying their voices. One example of that is we're doing a documentary. Film crew from California called us and wanted to do a documentary on some of our teen moms in our community care program. And so they're following them through the course of the life of the babies for the first year. But they felt so good to be, they said we get the chance to tell our story. Because TV sensationalizes teenage pregnancy. If you guys watch any of those, that's not how it happens in the life of these children. And so it's very important that we're there to give them that support.
I think there's very few adoptions that we see through Thrive.
Single digits.
Yeah, it's a real low number, and I think and that's where I think if you can give it time where they can see the baby develop and make it more, that child more real, that really changes hearts dramatically. Whereas if it's real early, I think they're willing to terminate the pregnancy, but they can't conceive that they would have their child raised by somebody else. And so it's the weirdest dynamic. I mean, it's a self survival technique, I think. I don't know. It's really strange.
A lot of times you can hear the girls say, if you introduce the idea of adoption, oh no, I could never do that. It's not, oh no, I could never abort. That's never said, but it's, oh no, I could never do that to place for adoption. It is just, and there's training that we do with with adoption agencies who come in and talk with our client advocates on how to even present that option in a way that they can hear it, to even begin to consider it, because it literally, you can almost guarantee that's what's coming next is I could never do that. And that's kind of across all lines, really, for any woman.
And all I wanted to add on that is with the teens that are in foster care, once they're removed, it was last year was a teen that had her baby removed because of neglect. She was feeding the baby. We also do classes at the Wisteria Juvenile Center, and she was there. She had ran away, and her baby was removed because she kept feeding the baby. The bottle wasn't clean, and the baby kept getting sick. And they were saying that she was neglecting and harming the baby, so the baby was removed. A year later, the baby was adopted. It happens a lot in foster care, but it's not by the teen's choice at all. It's because the baby has been removed or displaced, and the teen runs away, and then they loses their rights. They're very quick to terminate the rights of a teen mom in foster care because they know that a baby can get adopted. Everybody wants to adopt a baby, so they know that that's a child that they won't have in care. But the teen, on the other hand, stays in care and just kind of moves around.
Why are there so few maternity homes that serve 18 and under? Is it because of the parental guardian has?
Because they're
Yeah.
minors, and it's a lot of responsibility. Teenagers are crazy. Teenagers in 2023 are doing a lot, and it's a lot of supervision. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot. And so one reason why, even with the state, it took us 1.5 years to get licensed by the state because there's so much paperwork and so many things that you have to do regarding it, and people just don't want to do the work. And it's not, and I wouldn't say that. I think people have a heart for it, but it's difficult and it's hard, and you have to have really have a passion for it and be called to this to be able to do it because it's difficult.
Are there some house rules that you have, I assume? And if certain ones are broken, have you dismissed a girl, a mother.
No, we will not dismiss a child just because she breaks a rule. We have parameters in place, again, just like with your children. They get TV time taken away, they're not able to go, places, things like that. We have them where they refuse to take care of the baby. The other night, she said, I'm tired, I'm just not gonna get up. Well, we're the parent, we're the legal guardians, and we got them to take care of the baby, but she didn't get to have TV time the next day. The baby is your responsibility. So we make sure that they are the responsible parent first, and then we come in to support them, so we make that clear. But the only way they'll be dismissed if they harm themselves, they harm someone else, or they run away. And that's gonna be on their choice. That's the only way. Drugs. No, but when we are sent to placements, they have a whole list of everything they've done, where they've been, and all of that. And so we make sure that we are really thorough with that. But drugs would be a reason for dismissal as well.
Can I add one thing, Leanne? I think one thing to add to this conversation with teen moms or moms of any age, something that we do, and I know most pregnancy centers do, we have a man who is on staff. He's poor guy, the only guy on our staff. Poor thing, but he rolls with it. But he's our leader of our men's volunteers. And when the guys come in with their girlfriends, they don't know they have an appointment, but they do, if they're willing to come in and talk with someone. So, and his name is Ari. I call him our walking smile emoji, because that's exactly what he is. I mean, he's just so disarming. He goes out or one of his volunteers, talks with the guys who are in the waiting room. Hey, you want to just come back and talk with me about what's going on? And they never say no. And so they go back and talk, and the feedback we get is, oh, thank you. I really don't have anybody to talk to about this. I don't have anybody to talk to about this thing or about my girlfriend's pregnancy. We don't know what to do. And so even in thinking about, cases that have come to my mind, even while I'm sitting here with some of the women, it makes such a difference on their notes, regardless of their decision, if they're saying, if they're determined to abort or I do want a parent, always in that thread is the father of the baby or my boyfriend wants this. And that always is a factor. What the family wants is a factor. So the fact that we are there talking with the guy, helping him come to terms with things, helping him see the role that he can play, the responsibility he has, and how he can also be coached and trained and helped to get a better job or do some different things in his life differently that will help create a safe environment for her and for that baby makes all the difference in the world. So I think it's just important to just talk about that, about the role that we play as a pregnancy center in helping the men step up to do what they, I think, want to do, but sometimes don't know how to do, and learn how to be in that responsible role and that supportive role for her. And it definitely makes a difference if he comes on board. And he's able to do that a lot because of his visit with some of our male volunteers.
Thank you, Lisa. I think John is going to close us in prayer. Thank you all for coming. This has been an incredible evening, an educational event, and I'm sure so much to process and think about. So ask questions anytime of Counsel for Life. We're glad you came tonight.